Right, I am going to do a video on how I do my white scar white, which is this. Oddly enough, I don't actually use the white scar white during this paint. It's actually a bit of a interesting combination of a Griff Charger wash and then Ulthwan Grey and Corax White, followed by Runefan Steel for certain highlights. So I'm going to start off by just doing a wash out of Griff Charge Contrast and, as you can see here, water. I'm going to create a 50-50 mix, so I'm going to do this over here out of the way, but I'll just I'll show you what it looks like when I've mixed it together. So it's a 50-50 mix to get a very watery contrast paint. Let me just show you what I've done here so you can actually see. So it just looks like that. It's just turned into a very runny mix. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to coat the entire miniature in this from top downwards. And the idea is I really want this to run into every single little recess I can find. Now, I don't want it pooling too much, though, in too many places. So if it looks like it's kind of bunching together anywhere too much, I'm just going to carry on pushing it out the way. Although it takes a long time for this kind of heavily watered paint to dry, be mindful that you don't want it kind of sitting anywhere either for too long. So otherwise, you're just going to end up with tons of streaks all over and they're going to be harder to cover up. Now, hopefully you can see that what's happening is it's flowing into all of the recesses. Try to get everywhere, don't miss anywhere, because as you go in you really want this to sit in every single nook and cranny. And again, just be mindful, if it looks like a particular place has far too much, then just keep pushing it downwards. I think the only other thing I would say about this kind of technique I've found personally is, you do get a bit of weird splatter now and then. So if you see any, just again try and push it. And helps if I don't hit my camera with my paintbrush, but there we go, I'm getting there. I think. And see, I'm trying to get it into particular recesses as I go, so that it sits just where I want it to. Now, I have found as well that when I do this, there's no other way to put it. It can take easily an hour for this to kind of dry off. So you have to be very patient. I'm just trying to make sure that I've got this blue in every single nook and cranny, basically. Now, you'll notice as well, can you see how it starts to pool in certain places? Because obviously they were very runny. It's moving downwards down the miniature. So I don't like it to be too much. So you'll see that I'll just try and let the paintbrush soak some of it up. Okay, now that I've done that, and now that I've got that nicely done, it's a long wait to let it dry, but don't kind of not pay attention to it drying, because what you might find is if there's a lot of the paint falling to the bottom, you may want to kind of get on top of it. And other places that you'll find is like here underneath arches, I actually want the paint in there. So if you're not paying attention, it might decide to run away. Okay, so that's going to be a long time drying now, which means here's one I prepared earlier. And the idea behind this is now I'm going to start applying some Ulthuan Grey. So, very, very simple now. I don't want this too thick. In fact, I've just realised that's actually a lot thicker than I want it on my brush. And I'm just going to gently run this over. Now, I'm trying to stay away from where the shade is. I want to keep that shade. So it's very important to me right now that I don't quite end up where my shadows are. Now, you'll see that the initial layering that I've put on it, so the base coat, that was a combination of Wraithbone and Gracier Contrast. And that's making it just so much easier to layer on this grey now. I think as well, if you do things right on your base colours and that initial shade, it also kind of helps make things like Ulthuan Grey look whiter. So I think the best way to describe that is because it's on a slightly darker greyish background, cream grey background, it helps brighten it up a tiny bit. Again, I'm really trying to use those shadows I've created with the Griff Charger contrast. Now, here we go. Let me just start building this bit up now. Now, because that part's like very much underneath, I'm going to try and more end it there. So I'm keeping a bit more of that blue, the Griff Charger shadow as a result of it. Let me get this part done. Oh, this is a lot of area to cover, but it is getting there. Right, finally, I think I'm coming towards the end of this colour now. Just got a few other little bits to do. Okay, and there's the Ulf one. So our next little approach is to go grab that Corax here. And then plan for some shading. Well, not shading, highlighting even. Again, Corax white. And then just think about where basically the lightest points of the model are going to be. So there, probably a very good place to start. And anywhere else that you want to appear just a little bit brighter than anywhere else. I'm always a bit mindful about how much highlight to put on something here. It's trying to work out here. Well, you can't, not really going to see much of that leg, so I'm just going to maybe put there. Places like the end of the toes, particularly if they're extended out from the model. Again, because this is lifted and extended outwards, it's going to be a bit lighter. And again, same with this, the kind of the bottom of this. Maybe a bit more than that. So because this particular part of this is extended outwards, good to get the light hitting it a bit more. I'm probably not the best about thinking properly about where light's hitting, but hopefully I'll start getting better as time goes on. Now, right on the top of this. And then, right, so now I've got to get this part just right. Again, thinking about where the light will be travelling along this. A little bits on top of my gun here. Things like the fingers, top of this gauntlet, particular. Probably too much of that. Oops, let's try that again. Tim over here, just think about where the actual light's hitting it, which is obviously on the top of that. A little bit, but not too much on the top of the armour because it is technically shaded by the gun. And I think, yeah, probably a little bit, yeah. So takes so long to think about exactly where the light's going to be hitting this thing, but there we go. Now, ordinarily, I wouldn't put this silver on until I'd done everything, to be quite honest, but because I'm trying to show a how to paint video, it's probably a good idea if I show you what I do with this Rune Fang steel. So you can see the reason I don't normally put it right on the white is because I've got things like icons to paint on. You know, I've got to think about where the scratch marks and other things will go on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you good places to put a bit of a silver highlight. Works well as a kind of combination of battle damage, but it also just adds a little bit of a shine to certain edges. Again, if you want to show more severe battle damage, you will probably want to go for a darker silver in places. I like using this as a combination of potentially battle damage, but I just think it gives the impression of just general wear and tear on certain points of the miniature. And just using it to lift certain points. I'm trying to be subtle about it. I'm not trying to kind of make it a vibrant and bright silver. That's not the idea here. It's just to give a slight impression of edge and wear. And there we go. That is how I've achieved that white, which oddly enough will look a lot brighter when I've put other things next to it. One of the weird things I've found about this is it looks kind of a lot duller than it really is until I've actually put some other colours next to it. But I think it's one of those things where if you add a different colour next to the thing you're working on, it kind of naturally then brightens it up a bit. I'll just see if I can create the illusion almost just quickly. Because until I put this red on, I can't be 100% certain that it's the colour I want it to be. I think this is just Blood Angels contrast. And you'll notice, or hopefully you'll notice, that when it's got another colour working against it, it suddenly looks a lot brighter. It actually looks darker than it really is when there's no other colours on the miniature. But once you put those extra colours on, it'll kind of pop. Now, if you've put a few other colours on and you're feeling that it's still too dark, then all you need to do is just re-highlight certain areas with the Corax white, or whichever white you're using, really. There we go. I'm going to carry on painting this now, but there we go. That's how I'm achieving a White Scar white. Hope you like that. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.